The retirement party at the Fairmont Royal York had just wrapped when I pulled out of the underground parking into freezing Toronto sleet. I'm Margaret Ashford, 63, just retired after 35 years teaching high school mathematics. Widow. My grandson Jamie, 14, was supposed to be at hockey practice while I attended the evening celebration. I turned onto our quiet Mississauga street, headlights sweeping across the front porch, and my heart stopped. Jamie was crumpled at the bottom of the porch, steps like a discarded coat, body twisted, face gray as December ice, lips tinged blue, chest barely rising. My daughter-in-law Vanessa stood on the top step, arms folded, face eerily calm. "He's being dramatic," she said flatly. "Teenagers, you know." My son David appeared behind her, still in his work clothes, briefcase in hand. "Mom, he probably just tripped." "You're overreacting." I hit the wet concrete on my knees, dress coat soaking instantly, fingers shaking so hard I could barely dial 911. "My grandson isn't moving. He's 14. Please, I need an ambulance." The paramedics arrived in what felt like hours, but was probably 8 minutes. The lead medic, a woman in her 40s, badge-reading Chen, knelt beside Jamie immediately. Her partner grabbed equipment. Chen checked his pupils, felt for his pulse, then glanced up at Vanessa, standing motionless on the porch. The color drained from her face. She stood slowly, walked over to me, lowered her voice so only I could hear. "Ma'am, that woman on your porch, is she Jamie's mother?" I nodded, confused, terrified. Chen looked back at Vanessa, then at me. "Because 2 years ago in Vancouver, I responded to a call exactly like this. 14-year-old boy, same presentation, same blue sports drink story, same woman standing in almost the exact same spot with that exact same expression." Vanessa's calm mask flickered for half a second. Chen turned to her partner, voice sharp. "Priority transport, possible intentional overdose, possible ongoing abuse pattern. Let's move now. If you ever thought mothers would never hurt their own children, this story is going to shatter that belief. Drop your city or province in the comments if you're already feeling that cold dread creeping in." I read every single one. Now let me tell you what I discovered. The ambulance doors closed with Jamie inside. I climbed in without asking permission. Chen didn't stop me. As we pulled away, I looked through the small rear window. Vanessa was already on her mobile, typing furiously. David stood beside her, one hand on her shoulder, watching the ambulance disappear like it was someone else's emergency, someone else's child. Inside the rig, Chen worked quickly, hooking Jamie to monitors, starting an IV. She kept her voice low over the siren. "The Vancouver case," she said, adjusting the drip. 15-year-old boy, same high-dose diphenhydramine in his system, same bruising pattern that didn't match the story. Mother said he was clumsy, fell playing basketball. Charges were filed but dropped when the family moved to Ontario a month later. I testified at the preliminary hearing. I never thought I'd see her face again. The siren wailed through red lights. Jamie's hand was ice cold in mine. Chen glanced at the heart monitor, then back at me. "Does she travel much? Your daughter-in-law?" I couldn't answer because the question itself was an answer I didn't want to hear. The attending physician found me in the waiting area at Sick Kids Hospital just as dawn started breaking gray and cold over Toronto. She introduced herself as Dr. Sarah Okafor, head of pediatric emergency. Her voice was gentle but carried the weight of too many nights like this one. "Your grandson is breathing independently now," she said, leading me into a small consultation room. "We've administered activated charcoal, started aggressive IV hydration, and pumped his stomach. Blood work shows diphenhydramine at near-toxic levels, combined with severe dehydration and bruising in various stages of healing across his ribs and back. Under Ontario law, we're required to contact Children's Aid Society and Toronto Police Service immediately." I nodded, throat too tight for words. She hesitated. "Jamie is asking for you. He's awake." I walked into room 318 on legs that didn't feel like mine. My grandson looked impossibly small in that hospital bed, wires running from his thin arms, oxygen tube in his nose, monitors beeping too fast. When he saw me, tears spilled down his cheeks. "Gran." I sat on the edge of the bed, took his cold hand in both of mine. He started talking in a hoarse whisper, words tumbling out like he'd been holding them in for months. Mum said the blue Gatorade was special, had extra electrolytes for hockey players. Said if I didn't drink it, she'd tell coach I was faking injuries to skip practice. It tasted wrong, like medicine and chalk. Then my arms got so heavy I couldn't hold my stick. I tried to get inside, but my legs wouldn't work. I fell on the steps and she just stood there watching me. She said, "Now your grandmother will think you're using drugs, and she'll give up on you, and Dad will finally see you're not worth the trouble, and the life insurance money will be ours." Every word was a knife. Jamie's eyes were red, desperate. "I tried to fight it, Gran. I tried so hard. I'm sorry I drank it." I pressed his hand against my cheek, couldn't let him see me breaking. "You did nothing wrong, sweetheart. Nothing." A nurse came in to check his IV. I kissed his forehead and walked back to the waiting area. David was pacing, mobile to his ear. Vanessa sat perfectly still, legs crossed, reading something on her phone like it was an ordinary Wednesday morning. I stopped directly in front of my son. What did she give him? David lowered his phone. "Mom, you're exhausted." Vanessa was helping him with hydration. He's been pushing himself too hard at hockey. Vanessa didn't even look up. Jamie has always been fragile. Maybe hockey is too much for him. Some boys just aren't built for competitive sports. I stared at the man I'd raised, the boy I'd taught to tie his shoes and ride a bicycle. "Your son is 14 years old and you're calling poisoning a hydration issue." Vanessa finally met my eyes, expression blank. "Prove it." That single sentence snapped something inside me. I pulled out my mobile and dialed the one person who could turn "prove it" into prison time. My nephew Robert, a criminal investigator with the RCMP, picked up on the second ring. "Aunt Marge, what's wrong?" "I need everything you can find on Vanessa Ashford, born Vanessa Chen. Bank records, travel, purchases, phone records, everything, starting tonight." Robert didn't ask why. He just said, "Send me her photo and driver's license number. I'll have preliminary data in 6 hours." I hung up and looked at David and Vanessa. "Get out of this hospital. Do not come back. Do not call Jamie. Do not text him. You're done here." David's face went red. "You can't keep me from my own son. Watch me." I walked back to Jamie's room and didn't look back. My mobile vibrated against the plastic hospital chair while Jamie finally slept, sedatives working through his small body. I slipped into the hallway. Robert didn't bother with pleasantries. "Check your encrypted email. Now." I opened the secure link on my phone. The first folder was labeled simply, Subject A, Vanessa Chen Ashford. The first document made my blood run cold. A scanned copy of a $500,000 life insurance policy on Jamie, taken out 8 months ago. Vanessa was the sole beneficiary. David wasn't even listed. Beneficiary designation required 2 physicians to certify chronic condition rendering minor unable to manage affairs or death of insured before age 18. The metadata on the photo Vanessa had taken of the policy showed it was photographed inside a lawyer's office in Markham. Security footage Robert obtained showed her walking in alone, meeting with an insurance broker for 43 minutes, walking out with documents. That same week, she'd purchased a prepaid mobile with cash at a convenience store in Scarborough. That same evening, she'd filled her silver Acura and driven west. Stop 1. Vancouver, British Columbia. 4,400 kilometers. She'd checked into a budget motel under the name V. Chen, paid cash, stayed 2 nights. The second afternoon, a 5-year-old boy collapsed at a community recreation center after drinking blue Gatorade offered by a friendly woman who said she was a sports nutritionist. Hospital found diphenhydramine at dangerous levels. Mother reported it, police investigated, but Vanessa had already left the province. Case went cold. Stop 2. Calgary, Alberta. 3,400 kilometers from Toronto. Different motel, same cash payment pattern. 13-year-old boy at a skating rink, same blue drink, same collapse, same drug. Family reported it. Investigation stalled when the sports nutritionist vanished. Stop 3. Winnipeg, Manitoba. 14-year-old at a hockey clinic. Same pattern, same outcome. Every single time, Vanessa had changed the dose slightly, changed the location, changed her approach. She was practicing, calibrating, perfecting the exact dosage that would make a healthy teenager collapse long enough to trigger medical evaluations and psychiatric assessments without killing him outright. Because a dead beneficiary still pays out, but a living one declared mentally unfit could pay out earlier while also destroying his relationship with his grandmother, who controlled a separate trust fund worth $300,000 set aside for Jamie's university. Robert had toll records, security camera footage of Vanessa purchasing antihistamines with cash at 3 different pharmacies, motel keycard logs showing only 1 occupant, gas station receipts, all of it pointing to one person acting completely alone. His final message appeared while I stared at the timeline. "She's been waiting for the right moment. Your retirement party was it. You'd be emotional, distracted, maybe not thinking clearly. Perfect time to make Jamie look unstable, and you look like an overprotective grandmother who couldn't see the truth." I closed the phone and looked at my sleeping grandson. Vanessa had spent 2 years turning herself into a traveling poisoner just to steal money that would never be hers and destroy a boy's relationship with his grandmother. I left Jamie with 2 police officers stationed outside his room, per the children's aid hold, and caught the morning flight to Vancouver. First stop, the family of the boy from the recreation center. The mother, Priya, met me at a Tim Hortons near the airport. Her hands shook as she handed me a notarized affidavit and a USB drive. Her son, now 17, stayed in the car, eyes haunted. She called herself Victoria, Priya said. Gave my son a bottle of blue Gatorade. Said it was a new formula she was testing for athletes. 10 minutes later, he dropped like a stone. Doctors said it was the highest diphenhydramine level they'd seen in a living patient. Police called it suspicious but couldn't prove anything. I knew better. The USB drive contained security footage from the recreation center. Vanessa in a black tracksuit, smiling, handing over the bottle, walking away. Second stop, Calgary. The father, James, met me at a coffee shop downtown. He slid a manila envelope across the table, sealed with evidence tape. Inside, medical records, toxicology reports, and a receipt Vanessa had dropped in a parking lot, recovered by someone who thought it seemed suspicious. His son, now 15, had night terrors for 6 months after drinking that blue drink from the nice sports lady. She told him she'd coached Olympic athletes, James said, voice cracking. My boy trusted her. Tell her she didn't win. Third stop, Winnipeg. The mother, Sarah, invited me into her home in River Heights. Her son, now 16, sat at the kitchen table, gripping a drawing he'd made of the woman with the blue cooler. They gave me the original hospital intake forms, lab reports, and security footage from the hockey arena showing Vanessa filling the cooler with ice and powder at 6:47 a.m., hours before the clinic started. Every family gave me the same 3 things: notarized affidavits, medical proof with chain of custody intact, and time-stamped video evidence. Every receipt paid in cash. Every motel logged only 1 guest. Every toll record showed only her Acura. I flew home with 3 sealed evidence boxes and a stomach full of lead. Back in Mississauga, Robert met me at a secure storage facility he'd rented through a numbered company. We laid everything across a table. Affidavits in chronological order, medical timelines color-coded by province, map with pins showing the exact route Vanessa had taken, her Amazon order history showing antihistamine purchases, cell tower data from the burner phone. The final piece was a voicemail. Vanessa had left her insurance broker 2 months earlier, recovered from the broker's backup server. Hi, it's Vanessa Ashford. Quick question. If my stepson Jamie were diagnosed with severe anxiety or depression, and 2 doctors certified he couldn't manage his own affairs, would the policy pay out early? Just planning ahead. Thanks. The broker had kept it, felt something was off. By the end of those 12 days, I had a complete package. Robert drove me to the Toronto Police Service headquarters. We carried the boxes inside together and handed them to Detective Lisa Morrison, Major Crimes Unit. She opened the first folder, read for 3 minutes, looked up at me with steel in her eyes. This is airtight. We're moving on this immediately. I walked out, knowing the gears were turning. Vanessa still thought she was untouchable. She had no idea the walls were already closing in. The annual Hockey Heroes Awards night arrived with a bitter Ontario winter wind and stars sharp as broken glass. I stood in the prep area at the Mattamy Athletic Center, smoothing my navy dress one last time. My reflection looked composed. Inside, every nerve screamed. The invitation had gone out 8 days earlier. Elegant cardstock, silver lettering, honoring Jamie Ashford's recovery and celebrating youth resilience in sport. David had RSVP'd within an hour, Vanessa within 2. They walked through the private entrance at 6:30 p.m., sharp. Vanessa wore a charcoal suit that probably cost a month's salary, hair pulled back severe and perfect. David followed in a dark blazer, looking uncomfortable. They posed for the official photographer I'd arranged, a police videographer with professional equipment. Vanessa smiled, perfect white teeth, laughed at something, David whispered. The picture looked like a proud mother at her stepson's honor ceremony. I led them to reserved seats in the front row. 500 people filled the arena, coaches, players, families, journalists. CBC Toronto had cameras rolling. The livestream counter was already at 40,000 viewers. The host, a former NHL player, took the stage, ran through opening remarks, then turned to me with a warm smile. And now, to present the Courage Award to young Jamie Ashford, his grandmother, Margaret Ashford. The spotlight hit me. Applause rolled through the arena like thunder. I walked to the microphone, accepted the crystal trophy shaped like a hockey puck, and looked out at the faces. Jamie sat in the second row with his victim's advocate, thin but healing, wearing his team jersey. This award, I began, voice steady, belongs to every child who has been hurt by someone who was supposed to protect them. The massive screen behind me flashed white, then filled with an image. Vanessa, age 30, in a Vancouver recreation center, handing a blue bottle to a teenage boy, timestamp clear. Gasps rippled through the crowd. Second image. Vanessa in Calgary, walking away from a collapsed boy at a skating rink, looking back once to check if anyone was watching. Third image. Vanessa in Winnipeg, pouring white powder into a blue Gatorade bottle in a public washroom, caught on her own phone's front camera reflection. Fourth image. The life insurance policy, highlighted. $500,000 upon certification of mental incapacity or death. Fifth image. Her text to the insurance broker, blown up huge. If my stepson Jamie were diagnosed with severe anxiety. The arena went dead silent. 3 young men stood from different sections, scattered through the crowd. 17, 15, 16. They turned and pointed at Vanessa in perfect unison. "That's the woman who poisoned me," the Vancouver boy said, voice carrying across the silence. "She said she was helping me train better." The Calgary boy stepped forward. "Me too. She told me the blue drink was an Olympic secret." The Winnipeg boy just stared, tears streaming. Vanessa's face went from calm to white to crimson in 3 seconds. She stood, knocking her chair backward. "This is a setup. This is manipulation. That old woman is trying to turn my husband against me." David grabbed her arm, confusion and horror dawning on his face. "Vanessa, what is she talking about?" 2 Toronto police officers in dress uniforms stepped from the wings. Vanessa bolted, high heels clicking as she ran for the side exit. They caught her before she made it 5 meters. Handcuffs clicked shut. "You have no proof," she screamed, voice echoing through the arena. "You have no proof. That boy is unstable. He's lying. They're all lying." Detective Morrison stepped onto the stage beside me, holding up a file folder thick as a dictionary. "We have security footage from 3 provinces. We have medical records. We have your cash purchases of diphenhydramine. We have your travel records matching every incident. We have your own voicemail to your insurance broker. We have 3 victims willing to testify. And we have Jamie's testimony." David sank into his chair, head in his hands. The live stream counter rolled past 2 million viewers. I looked straight into the nearest camera. This is what happens when someone decides a child's life is worth less than money. This is what happens when someone thinks they can practice on other people's children to perfect their crime. This is what happens when you underestimate a grandmother. The arena erupted. Phones up, flashes everywhere, people shouting questions. Vanessa was dragged out, still screaming about conspiracies and lies. David followed behind her in handcuffs, charged with failure to protect a minor and obstruction. The police had found texts on his phone showing Vanessa had told him about Jamie's accidents, and he'd said nothing, done nothing. I stayed on stage until both were gone. Then I walked to Jamie, handed him the trophy, and held him while he cried into my shoulder. "You're safe now, sweetheart. You're safe." 14 months later, the Ontario Superior Court delivered the final verdict under gray February skies. Vanessa Chen Ashford, 34, stood in orange while the clerk read the counts. 3 counts of attempted murder, 1 count of administration of noxious substance with intent to harm, criminal negligence causing bodily harm, fraud over $5,000. The judge looked over her glasses and sentenced her to 18 years at the Grand Valley Institution, with no parole eligibility for 12 years. Vanessa showed no emotion. She stared at me the entire time with eyes like winter ice. David Ashford, my son, took a plea deal, 3 years at Beaver Creek Institution for failure to protect and obstruction of justice. When the sentence was read, he finally looked at me, tears on his face, mouthed, "I'm sorry." I turned away. The life insurance policy was voided under Ontario's fraudulent transfer laws. The $300,000 trust I'd established for Jamie was restructured as a locked-in education trust with me as sole trustee until his 25th birthday. A civil suit added $1.2 million in damages against Vanessa, secured against any future earnings. Jamie and I moved to a quiet neighborhood in Oakville where nobody knows our story. New school, new hockey team, new pediatrician who specializes in trauma recovery. He still has nightmares sometimes, wakes up gasping, "Gran," but they're getting fewer. He scored his first goal of the season last Saturday. When he pointed at me in the stands with his stick raised high, grinning so wide it hurt to look at, I cried harder than I did the night this all began. David wrote once from prison, 4 pages about how he never meant for it to go this far, how he loved his son but was blinded by Vanessa. I read the first paragraph, took it to the backyard fire pit, and burned it. Jamie helped me roast marshmallows over the flames and asked if fire could burn away bad things. I told him yes, sometimes it could. Vanessa's appeal was denied in a scathing 18-page decision that called her conduct calculated predation on vulnerable youth. The 3 other boys, now young men, started a private group chat they call The Survivors. They play online games, share hockey stats, and sometimes when the memories hit hard, they talk. They call me Grand Margaret, even though we're not blood. They call Jamie little brother. They're family now. I kept my pension, volunteer at the hospital now, mentor other grandparents navigating the child protection system. With the first portion of the civil settlement, I started the Jamie's Hope Fund, anonymous emergency assistance for families whose children are being harmed by trusted adults. First year, we helped 28 families relocate safely, change names, and start over. Some evenings, I sit on our back porch watching Jamie practice stick handling in the driveway. He drops the puck, skates around orange cones we set up together, takes his shot against the net. When he scores, he looks back at me and grins. Last week, he came inside, cheeks red from cold, handed me a drawing he'd made. It showed the 2 of us holding hands under stars, stick figures but careful, detailed. At the bottom he'd printed in his neat handwriting, "Gran saved me." I pinned it to the refrigerator next to his honor roll certificate and his team photo. If you're hearing this, and someone in your family is hurting your child or grandchild, hear me clearly. You are not overreacting. You are not imagining things. You are not alone. Document everything. Save everything. Fight like your child's life depends on it, because it does. Because sometimes the monster doesn't hide under the bed or lurk in dark alleys. Sometimes the monster sits across from you at Thanksgiving dinner wearing the face of someone your son married. And sometimes justice comes, but only if you're brave enough to drag it into the light, even when it means losing your own child to prison to save your grandchild's life. Jamie just came in from practice, snow in his hair, asking if we can watch the Maple Leafs game together tonight. I said yes, of course we can. We settled on the couch, his head on my shoulder, hot chocolate cooling on the coffee table. Halfway through the second period, he looked up at me. "Gran, do you think the other boys are okay? The ones she hurt before me?" "I think they're healing, sweetheart, just like you are." He nodded, turned back to the game. "Good. Nobody should have to feel like that." "No, my darling boy, nobody should. But because you were brave enough to tell the truth, because you survived, 3 other boys know they weren't crazy, weren't weak, weren't alone. And that might be the most important victory of all." The Maple Leafs scored. Jamie jumped up, fist in the air, grinning. "Free, safe, mine."